With the release of LEGO Fortnite Expert Mode less than a day away, today I thought it was the perfect time to go ahead and tell you guys exactly how you need to prepare. As we all know by now, this new Expert Mode that's coming to the game means you get one life, and once you lose that life, you are booted out of your world forever. Now, I don't want that to happen to any of my viewers, so today I got you guys. Today I sat down and I put together a list of my best tips and tricks for starting a new world on LEGO Fortnite, because let's be honest, it's probably been a long time since we have started from scratch, and a lot of us will be starting from scratch tomorrow, so I don't want to waste any more of your guys' time. We're gonna hop into a bunch of tips and tricks. We'll start out with some basic ones, and then we'll get into more detailed ones from the patch notes directly. So I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys are subscribed as well so you don't miss any of my personal hardcore survival series videos. I'm gonna be uploading those daily. With all that being said though, enjoy the advice, share this with a friend who you think this might help, and let's get into it. And the first tip I have for you guys today is to begin with a village as soon as possible. Don't just place this village anywhere though. What you should try and do is find a spot of land that's located in between all three of the main biomes in the game. So that's the grasslands, the drylands, and the frostlands biomes. And that'll just ensure that you guys have the maximum efficiency across the board. Obviously, as you start your exploration, you're just going to be in the grasslands biome, but as you start getting the equipment to enter the drylands and frostlands, it's definitely going to be worth it to put your village in between them. Not much more to say here, but you will thank your future self if you do this, so I would recommend you do it. So now that you have your village down, we need to talk a little bit about villagers. I know that a lot of people, including myself, are very picky when it comes to which villagers they accept into their village. When you're starting out in expert mode, I would say forget it. Accept every single villager that stops by. Who cares what villager it is? You can always replace them later. The main reason we're doing this is so we can instantly start assigning them jobs. Any jobs. Especially in the early game, even just assigning your villagers to do basic tasks like collecting nearby resources will definitely eliminate some of that annoying back and forth grinding that you have to do when starting a new world. The main thing that I'm personally going to be looking for my villagers to do early on is refining wood and collecting nearby resources so I can start upgrading my crafting bench as soon as possible. Some of these villagers can also give you really useful things early on, like shells and silk and other things that are kind of annoying to get. So definitely make sure you're getting villagers in as soon as possible and assigning them to jobs, because if they're not working, then they're just going to stand around, and that seems like a waste of time. The next thing you're going to need to do as soon as possible in your expert worlds is make sure you have a good storage system. If you've ever watched me, this is something I preach very heavily. I'm a sucker for organization, and I think it just makes your life in any survival game so much more efficient. In my main world at the moment, I have one big storage dojo which carries every single resource and item in the game. Obviously, your storage doesn't have to be this big. It can be set on the floor, but I think what a lot of people forget is when you're starting from scratch, you're going to be using a lot of small chests which only hold 8 items. I think early on, it's super important to stay organized just for your own sanity, and kind of helps you know exactly where everything is so you can build things and craft a lot quicker. But that tip is definitely not as important as our next one, which gets into the crafting table and more specifically charms. Look, there's a lot of reasons why you should be upgrading your crafting bench as soon as possible. You got better tools, better weapons, you can even make a shovel. You name it. But there's no better reason for upgrading your crafting bench in the early parts of your gameplay than to make charms. Even the simplest of charms will give you a significant advantage in the health department. They'll grant you extra hearts and shield and allow you to take more damage before dying, which is obviously super important. To make the cheapest health charm in the game, all you're going to need are some bones, silk, and wolf claws, and just like that, you'll have an extra heart and shield for your player. You know, you only have one life, so you probably should get these as soon as you can. You can obviously get better charms and work your way up, but start small and play safe until you've got some OP charms in your possession. Now, staying on the topic of things that you should definitely do when you start your world, we've got to mention shields, because this would not be a basic survival video without mentioning that. So if you go over to your crafting table, even if it's not upgraded in the slightest, you'll be able to make a common knight shield with 5 planks and 1 core. And although a common shield might not seem like much, you can equip it in your offhand, and when you go to fight your enemies, this thing will absolutely save you. Again, I know the tips at the beginning of this video are pretty basic, but this is something that I'm sure a lot of people honestly forgot about. But if you just hold your shield up, you can see that you're not going to get hit by mobs, and not just things like spiders, because these are weak in the first place. But even if you find yourself getting chased by skeletons in a grasslands cave or anything like that, all you got to do is hold your shield out and you will be basically invincible. Again, I know this is very basic advice, but it is going to save your life in this game, especially when you're starting out. So that's why I feel like I just had to mention the shield. I mean, this thing is just so effective up until it breaks. Next up, you know we had to talk about the glider. As somebody who has played this game every single day since release, I can confidently say that the glider is the most useful piece of equipment in the game. To make one of these, it's pretty simple and safe. It just might take you a little bit of time. All you need is a rare crafting bench, a loom, some silk and wool fabric, and some flexwood rods, and voila. A glider is born. Look, whether we realize it or not, the glider saves an unreal amount of time traveling and can also save you from fall damage in certain sticky situations. All around, definitely a good thing to have in your inventory as soon as you can. Because when you're starting out a new world, you're not going to have the time or resources to really build insane airships or vehicles to traverse around the world. I would say the glider is a very solid replacement, and for that reason, it's definitely something that you should pay attention to early on. We're going to jump a little bit deeper into the patch notes that I reviewed last video to see if we can get any context as to how we can prepare. And from everything they provide in the patch notes, the ultimate goal is the Totem of Return. In case you didn't see the patch notes yet, I'll quickly read a description of it. If you have a Totem of Return equipped when you lose all your hearts, you'll revive in your bed with your backpack. The totem will destroy itself though, a small cost for escaping permanent elimination. So yeah, just by that, you know exactly how important the Totem of Return is. And while we're still uncertain about what this charm will require to craft, you should absolutely do whatever it takes to get one of these in your inventory as soon as possible. I'd imagine it'll probably be pretty expensive to craft, and the only thing we know for certain about this is that you do unlock the recipe by adding a storm core to your inventory, and a storm core is the item that the storm wild enemies will drop. And speaking of storm wild enemies, they are a brand new type of enemy that'll be introduced into the game with the update, and while they're not brand new creatures, so to speak, they will look visibly different from their peers, as storm wild enemies will have a noticeable purple aura around them. When you do see one of these creatures, make sure you are extra careful around them. They'll deal more damage, they'll have more health, and they'll move faster than regular enemies. Little pro tip that I definitely forget, and maybe some of you guys do as well, you can crouch and sneak around in this game. When you do that, enemies will not be able to detect you as long as you're not making any noise. So yeah, use that to your advantage, because I think a lot of people probably forgot that they could even do that in the first place. But out of the list of all of these storm wild enemies being added to the game, if you only pick battles with the weaker ones like spiders, scorpions, and crabs, it'll probably be the easiest way to start collecting storm cores. Although they'll probably end up dropping less storm cores than creatures like a wolf or a brute. Still might be an efficient way to get storm cores early on. And since survival is the name of the game for this update, you're really gonna have to be careful of the enemies around you. So I've got two more little tips to share with you guys today. First of which is to be extra cautious of wolves, as something in this update that's definitely gonna fly under people's radar is the fact that now wolves can swim. Yes, right here in the patch notes, it just says wolves learned how to swim. Early on, just don't think you can swim across a river and escape a wolf, because he's probably going to be able to catch you and eliminate you. So yeah, just be careful of that. And like I said, one more thing to note on enemies, and this one has to do with village location. Previously, if you placed a village on the floor somewhere, a lot of skeletons would show up and they would just start fighting all throughout the night. You'd wake up in the morning and there would just be bones all over your village. That should no longer be the case, because it does say in the patch notes that skeletons will be less likely to spawn in villages. So while I do think you should probably still build up some sort of barrier around the exterior of your village, you do have to be a little less careful, which is nice. But at the end of the day, this is an expert mode with one life and everything is on the line. So make sure you guys are covered at all times in some sort of way. And I think these tips will help you be covered, especially in the early game. So if this helped you at all, make sure to drop a like and share this with your friends. I know that a lot of these tips were pretty basic, but it is a nice refresher, as you know, like I said earlier, a lot of us have been in our worlds for a long time, and I personally kind of forgot about the early game grind. So I just wanted to make this video as a quick refresher before the new update drops tomorrow. Stay tuned to my channel though for my daily survival series in this new expert mode. The content that we're about to put out is going to be insane and you do not want to miss it. But that's been it for me. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.